Job lost everything in a single day: his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. Yet he emerged from hell stronger than he entered it. If you are going through the worst season of your life right now, what I am about to share could be the key to not just surviving but thriving through whatever you are facing. Job's story is not just ancient history. It is a blueprint for how to maintain faith when everything falls apart and how to find God's strength in your greatest weakness. His strategies for enduring suffering have sustained believers through every kind of trial for thousands of years. Stay with me, because understanding how Job survived hell could be exactly what you need to overcome the hell you are experiencing right now. Here is the first strategy that kept Job strong during his darkest hours. He separated God's character from his circumstances. When everything went wrong in Job's life, he could have concluded that God was mean, absent, or powerless. Instead, he declared that God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job understood that God's goodness is not dependent on whether life feels good at the moment. God's love is not determined by whether circumstances feel loving. God's power is not measured by whether problems disappear immediately. This separation between God's character and current circumstances is crucial for surviving difficult seasons. When you anchor your faith in who God is rather than what God is currently doing in your situation, you can maintain hope even when hope seems impossible. Your circumstances are temporary, but God's character is eternal. Your problems will change, but His love will remain constant. Your situation will improve, but His faithfulness was already perfect before improvement came. Have you ever been tempted to judge God's goodness based on difficult circumstances you were experiencing? How did maintaining belief in His character help you get through that season? Share in the comments about a time when separating God's character from your circumstances helped sustain your faith. The second strategy Job used was brutal honesty combined with unwavering faith. Job did not pretend that everything was fine or put on a spiritual mask to hide his pain. He expressed his anguish, questioned his situation, and even wished he had never been born. But notice what he did not do. He did not curse God or turn away from faith. He brought his honest emotions to God rather than hiding them or letting them drive him away from relationship. This combination of emotional honesty with spiritual faithfulness is powerful because it allows you to process pain without losing hope. You can acknowledge that your situation is terrible without concluding that God is terrible. You can admit that you do not understand without deciding that God does not have good reasons. You can feel overwhelmed without believing that you are abandoned. Honest faith is stronger than pretend faith because it faces reality while still choosing to trust. When you stop pretending that everything is fine and start bringing your real struggles to God, you discover that He can handle your honesty and that His love is big enough to embrace your humanity. The third strategy was that Job focused on what he could control instead of what he could not control. Job could not control what Satan was allowed to do to his life. He could not control other people's responses to his suffering. He could not control how long his trials would last, but he could control his response to these uncontrollable circumstances. He chose worship over bitterness. He chose faith over despair. He chose integrity over compromise. He chose humility over pride. He chose to trust God's wisdom over his own understanding. This focus on controllable responses rather than uncontrollable circumstances prevented Job from becoming a victim of his situation. When you focus your energy on what you can control, your attitude, your choices, your words, your actions, you maintain power even in powerless situations. You become an active participant in your survival rather than a passive victim of your circumstances. The fourth strategy Job used was maintaining his integrity regardless of pressure to compromise. Job's wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of secret sins that supposedly caused his suffering. Everyone around him pressured him to either give up on God or admit to wrongdoing that would explain his pain. But Job refused to compromise his integrity or abandon his faith simply to make others comfortable or to find easy explanations for difficult circumstances. He declared that until he died, he would not remove his integrity from himself. His reputation with people was destroyed, but his relationship with God remained intact. Sometimes maintaining integrity during trials means disappointing people who want you to handle your suffering differently. Some will want you to be more positive than feels genuine. Others will want you to be more negative than faith allows. Some will pressure you to give up. Others will pressure you to pretend everything is fine. But your integrity is more valuable than their comfort, and God's opinion of your character matters more than their opinion of your responses. Have you ever faced pressure to compromise your values or abandon your faith during a difficult season? What helped you maintain integrity when it would have been easier to take shortcuts? Tell me in the comments about a time when maintaining integrity during trials ultimately proved to be the right choice. The fifth strategy was that Job never stopped believing in God's ultimate justice and restoration. Even in his darkest moments, Job declared that his Redeemer lives and that he would be vindicated. He believed that God would eventually make things right, even if he could not see how or when that would happen. This hope in ultimate justice and restoration sustained Job through present injustice and loss. He could endure temporary unfairness because he trusted eternal fairness. He could survive present loss because he believed in future restoration. He could handle current misunderstanding because he had confidence in eventual vindication. This forward-looking faith is essential for surviving hell seasons. When you know that God is writing a story that will eventually have a good ending, you can endure difficult chapters. When you trust that restoration is part of His plan, you can survive seasons of loss. When you believe that He makes all things beautiful in His time, you can wait through ugly circumstances. Here is what happened when Job applied these strategies consistently. His faith grew stronger through testing. His relationship with God became deeper through suffering. His understanding of divine wisdom increased through mystery. His capacity for helping others expanded through personal experience with pain. And ultimately, God restored everything he had lost and gave him more than he had before his trials began. But here is the most important truth about Job's story. The restoration was wonderful, but it was not the point. The point was that Job learned to find God sufficient even when everything else was insufficient. He discovered faith that did not depend on favorable circumstances. He developed a relationship with God that was not conditional on getting what he wanted when he wanted it. What trials are you currently facing that seem impossible to survive? What circumstances in your life feel like hell right now? What pressure are you experiencing to compromise your faith or integrity? What hope do you need to maintain for God's ultimate justice and restoration in your situation? I want you to apply Job's strategies starting today. Separate God's character from your current circumstances. Be brutally honest with God about your pain while maintaining unwavering faith in His goodness. Focus on what you can control rather than what you cannot control. Maintain your integrity regardless of pressure to compromise. Never stop believing in God's ultimate justice and restoration in your life. Share in the comments what specific strategy from Job's example you most need to apply in your current situation, because your courage to apply biblical principles during trials might encourage someone else who is also going through hell right now. If this is giving you hope and strategies for surviving your own difficult season, subscribe and ring that notification bell, because we are exploring how biblical heroes overcame impossible circumstances and how their faith principles can strengthen you through any trial you face. Remember, the same God who brought Job through hell and made him stronger than before is the same God who is with you in your hell and who will bring you through stronger than you entered. Your trial is not your final destination. Your hell is not your permanent home. Your suffering is not your ultimate story. Hold on to faith like Job held on to faith, and watch God prove